There's a rule so harsh it slices through excuses like a blade. Do nothing that is of no use. Miyamoto Musashi used it to win duels and dominate his mind. Fast. Apply it for 5 minutes and your thoughts obey. Your actions follow. Your life compounds. And today, you'll discover exactly how to get there. If you're serious about forging this edge, subscribe and comment the one distraction you'll cut today. Let's begin. Ren's morning doesn't begin so much as it spills. The alarm doesn't ring. His phone vibrates with a quilt of banners. 4 messages from teammates in different time zones, 2 calendar nudges, a flash of breaking news, a recommendation he didn't ask for. He unlocks the screen to stop the noise and, without meaning to, lets the day take him by the hand. There's a document he swore he'd start, the one that might move his life forward an inch. But first, he taps the chat bubble to be responsible. A colleague asks for a quick opinion, which blooms into a thread. He promises 5 minutes. 11 pass. A link opens a new tab, and the new tab suggests an essential article. The first paragraph plants a second thought. Maybe he should check what other teams are doing, what the market is doing, what the world is doing. 10 more minutes. The document sits like a quiet guest in the corner. No one invites to speak. By mid-morning, he's wearing mental jet lag. He paces into the kitchen, grabs coffee, replies to a message because it takes less courage than opening the draft. He scans his to-do list and feels like he's looking at a city map of places he'll never visit. He meaningfully rearranges sticky notes. He deletes a sentence in an email and rewrites it with a stronger verb, then undoes the change because now it sounds arrogant. He feels productive the way drowning feels like swimming. When he finally opens the draft, the page is judgmental white. He writes 5 words, switches to check a notification, returns and rereads the 5 words, edits them into 4, then back to 5, like carving the same groove in a stone that refuses to become a statue. Noon arrives, and he's tired without achievement. It's the softest kind of failure, one without drama, only a steady leak. He is not lazy. Anyone who watches him sees motion, but the motion lacks a blade. He is a master of partial starts, of attention's half steps. He tells himself a virtuous lie. I work best under pressure. Then opens another tab, then another. He feels the day slipping as if someone gently tilted the room and everything is gliding toward an invisible drain. That afternoon, a mentor invites him out for tea. No speeches, just steam curling from cups and a silence that forces words to earn their way out. The mentor listens to his fog, his tabs, his exhaustion that never solves itself. Then he sets his phone face down and says, like a stone dropped in a still pond, "Do nothing that is of no use." Ren smiles politely, the way you smile at a proverb you've seen on a poster. The mentor doesn't blink. Not some things, nothing, and not someday, now, for 5 minutes. He slides a small notebook over. Inside, the sentence is written alone on a page. It doesn't wink with motivation. It stares like a rule engraved on a gate. The mentor explains, not as a lecture, more as a confession, that the mind is not a courtroom where reason argues and wins. It's a marketplace where whatever shouts the loudest often gets paid. The rule is not poetry. It's an axe. It doesn't negotiate with distractions. It removes them. You'll hate it first, he says, because it asks for a sacrifice, the softer self that loves micro-pleasures and the applause of small, visible tasks. He taps the notebook again. 5 minutes. Pick one necessary strike, then cut everything else the moment it reaches for you. Out loud, if you have to. Ren protests with all the gentle wisdom of a tired man. Some distractions are useful. Scanning headlines keeps him informed. Quick replies build goodwill. Organizing tools will make him faster later. The mentor nods. Maybe. But right now, when the blade must touch the target, anything that's not the blade or the target is the sheath. And the sheath doesn't win duels. The walk home feels different. The sentence feels heavier the longer he carries it. He recognizes how much of his calendar is camouflage. Work about work, optimizing the workshop while the wood sits untouched. At his desk, he doesn't build a new system. He does one unglamorous thing. He sets a 5-minute timer. Draft intro, he writes, only that. He places the notebook beside the keyboard where the line can see him. The timer begins, and the first resistance is embarrassingly small, an itch to check if a friend replied. He lifts the phone. The sentence looks at him. He lowers the phone and says, quietly at first, then firmer, "Not useful." The words feel awkward, like wearing a uniform he hasn't earned. He stares at the cursor. A second resistance arrives wearing a respectable mask. Maybe he should outline the whole piece before writing the intro. He can nearly feel himself leaving the page, floating into a safer meta-task. "Not useful," he says again, and returns to the sentence. He types the first clumsy line. It's ugly. He wants to polish it. "Not useful." Next line. 30 seconds drag. The urge to switch tabs surges like a wave. He doesn't fight the wave. He lets it crash and recede while he keeps typing. A thought interrupts. "You forgot to confirm tomorrow's meeting." And this time, he doesn't bargain. He grabs a scrap of paper and writes "meeting after," then returns to the draft, treating the thought like a leaf that fell on his path rather than a reason to hike a new trail. 2 minutes brings a strange sensation. The urges don't vanish. They simply lose volume. The rule doesn't silence the world. It makes the strike louder. He writes another line, then another. The 5 minutes end, and, for the first time in weeks, he's forward of where he started. The victory is microscopic and absolute. He sets another 5 minutes. This time, halfway through, he loses nerve and clicks an article. 2 paragraphs later, he notices the drift, like waking from a dream. He doesn't scold himself. He restarts the timer. "Not useful." Back to the blade. He repeats the 5-minute drill 3 more times that day. He isn't in flow. He's in friction. But it's the right friction, the kind that shapes edges. The small progress embarrasses him for how long he's avoided it. He realizes that most of his fatigue wasn't from work. It was from carrying the weight of unmade decisions. Each "not useful" is a decision made once instead of 100 micro-judgments argued all afternoon. That evening, he opens a blank page. Not the draft, not email, and sketches a ritual. Not a productivity system with colors and ranks. A kata, a repeatable sequence that carves grooves in the mind until the body can walk them without debate. First, stillness. Sit down with both feet on the floor. Unclench the jaw. Let the eyes widen, not to stare, but to soften, like looking at a mountain far away rather than a single tree in front of you. This soft gaze quiets the reflex to chase the nearest flicker. He sets a breath cadence. Slow inhale, slower exhale. 6 times. There is no mystical lightning bolt. There is a reduction of noise, like turning down a radio before you pick the station. Second, name the strike. 1 verb and 1 object. Written, not held in memory. Draft the intro. Email Sam the deliverables. Outline 3 arguments. Nothing with "and", no commas. He feels the difference between vague intention, work on project, and a blade with a tip. Third, cut. This is where the rule earns its reputation. He closes every tab not needed for the strike. He puts the phone in the other room. He clears the desk, keyboard, notebook, water, nothing else. He opens a small capture page titled "After." Any thought that tries to hijack the session gets written there and starved. He says the words out loud when he has to. Not useful. He means them like a guard at a gate, not a man pleading with himself. He adds a tiny friction to temptations. If he must check something, he must stand to do it. The body will veto most false urgencies. Fourth, single flow. For 2 minutes, he moves only in the direction of the strike. Not fast, not perfect, just forward. No rereads, no second browser, no fixing yesterday's sentence that suddenly looks offensive to his new standards. If the mind argues, he gives it a line from the Stoics. Focus on what is up to you, and returns to the keys. He writes these steps as if documenting a lab protocol. He notes how the ritual isn't about summoning motivation, it's about engineering the situation so that motivation is unnecessary. Reduce friction to the useful, increase friction to the useless. The brain's inhibitory circuits, normally overworked and undertrained, get a clear job. Say no to anything that cannot help the strike in the next 5 minutes. He imagines the basal ganglia's no-go pathway, strengthening rep by rep, the prefrontal cortex holding a single aim like a torch in wind. He doesn't need to be a neuroscientist to notice that every not useful preserves a little dopamine for the work instead of donating it to a novelty slot machine. He gives the ritual edges the way a sword has: a start, hands on home keys, breath set; a boundary, 5 minutes, merciful and non-negotiable; a finish, when the timer ends he stands, logs what moved, and either runs another 5 or leaves clean. No smearing of sessions into a grey blur. He names the log Strike Ledger, a ledger that cares about trajectories, not theatrical sprints. The second night, he refines the stance. He discovers that if he begins with the chair slightly further from the desk, he leans forward to start and the body registers commitment. He notices that if he whispers the strike before he types, draft the intro, the act is less fragile. He learns to expect mischief. The mind will propose noble detours dressed as duty, update the style guide to speed future drafts. He writes them on the after page with a small sideways smile. He sees the pattern. Most of what exhausts him is not work, but negotiations with impulses pretending to be work. By the third morning, he experiments with a pre-strike question. If I only had 5 minutes today, what would I do right now? The answer is rarely ambiguous. Sometimes it's sending one decisive email that unblocks others. Sometimes it's dumping a rough outline that would embarrass his future self into clarity. He notices that naming the strike out loud has a monastic vibe, like taking a vow for a tiny sacred window. He adds a safeguard, a distance rule borrowed from martial arts. Keep the right distance from enemies. Tabs are opponents, keep them out of reach. Tools are allies, keep them close. He arranges the desktop so the only windows visible are the document and the timer. He learns the hasuji, the angle of the blade, as a metaphor. The angle of his attention must enter the task clean. If he comes at it sideways, trying to sneak in through a side chore, the cut glances off. The deeper insight arrives slowly, the way dawn pretends it isn't happening, and then suddenly it is. He sees that he isn't getting disciplined at all. He is removing items that make discipline impossible. He isn't adding a habit, he's subtracting options. The mind relaxes not because the world is quiet, but because he finally stopped casting votes for noise. He sees how often he confused urgency with importance, activity with move the mission. He sees that 5 clean minutes can be replicated at will, and that 9 of them in a day beat a heroic 3-hour session he never starts. He notices something else. The ritual begins to leak dignity into other behaviors. He eats without a screen, because screens at meals are not useful for eating. He answers a friend's question with his full attention, because splitting the mind is not useful for human connection. He sweeps his apartment with the same timer, amused to find that 5 minutes produces a visible difference. The rule is no longer a line on a page, it's a hilt he can feel in his palm. When he falters, and he does often, the recovery is small and immediate. He doesn't perform the old theatre of guilt. He doesn't announce to himself a grand recommitment with a new notebook and a new promise. He sets a timer, names a strike, cuts, executes, logs. The chain continues. If he breaks the chain, he rebuilds it without autopsy. The ritual doesn't need belief to work, it just needs repetition. The notebook sits open beside him day after day, the sentence aging from ink to practice. Do nothing that is of no use. He used to treat his attention like a crowd to be entertained. Now it's a blade to be drawn for one purpose at a time. 5 minutes at a time, the blade remembers what it was made to do. The real test arrives on a Tuesday disguised as duty. At 10:13 a.m., a client's feature breaks in production and a dozen red dots bloom across the team chat. Mentions multiply, urgency escalates, and someone starts a call titled Fire Drill, Join Now. Ren's heart sprints. The old him would have dove in face first, tabs, channels, opinions, because being everywhere feels like being useful. But his cursor is blinking in the document he promised to ship by noon, the one that unblocks 3 other teams. For a moment, he's split in 2, the man who helps in public and the man who finishes in private. He stands. The movement interrupts panic chemistry. He breathes once, long enough to feel gravity return to his legs, and quietly asks the only question that matters. What is my strike? It isn't solve everything. It isn't prove I'm loyal. It's finish section 3 and hand it off. He writes it on his strike ledger and sets 5 minutes. The first impulse pushes back hard. Join the call, be seen, show you care. He answers without anger. Not useful. Then he performs a smaller mercy for the team. He writes a single clean message in chat, 3 lines, no theatre, asking the on-call engineer what they need that only he can provide. He pins the reply and returns to the blade. The noise continues, but he is positioned differently. He is in the stance. 2 minutes, a teammate pings him privately with quick thought. He types a boundary he prepared in calm weather for storms like this. Heads down to ship the dock in 45. If truly blocking, send 1 sentence and I'll triage. It's not rudeness, it's shape. The reply never comes. 3 minutes, he feels a phantom limb urge to just peek at the error logs. Not useful. A memory surfaces from his mentor. A duel is not won by swinging at every shadow, but by cutting the one you aimed for. The timer dings. The paragraph exists where a blank once sat. He logs it, breathes, and sets another 5. Halfway through the second round, the on-call engineer replies, they need 1 sentence of context from the spec he's writing. This is now useful. He grants a surgical detour, copies the sentence, pastes it in, tags the right person, returns. In the video call, 5 voices talk on top of one another. He is not in the room, he is in the work. At 11:02, section 3 is done. He sends it to review with a timestamp and a checklist. The room hasn't stopped shouting, but his contribution is the kind you can build upon, not the kind that burns calories and leaves ash. After lunch, the storm changes shape. Now it's quiet sabotage. A competitor publishes a glossy launch thread, and links flood the team channel with, "We should respond with our own write-up today." Marketing requests a fast pass draft. Ren feels the ancient pull to chase public relevance. He opens the link, scrolls 2 paragraphs, and recognizes the trap. He will think about their story instead of finishing their own. He closes the tab, whispering, "Not useful," not as denial of reality, but as commitment to theirs. He jots a time-boxed slot at 4:30 p.m. to review and respond if needed, after the mission moves. If he learned anything, it's that the world rewards immediate noise. Results reward finished strikes. What breaks him isn't force, but leakage, tiny compromises that seem noble. Jump on the call because they need you. Scan the thread because you should be informed. Tidy your brief because clarity matters. He sees, with a calm that surprises him, that the axis is not selfishness versus service. It's useful versus not to the mission now. Service without shape is indulgence with a halo. By week's end, the ritual has teeth. He stacks 3, sometimes 4, 5-minute rounds and calls the stack a kata. 3 katas is a good morning. A 4th is a declaration. He trains a practice he once thought soft, to notice his cravings without voting for them. Urges still arrive, but he no longer treats them as orders. They are weather. He feels the mind acclimating like a climber at altitude, each day a little more oxygen at the same height. The changes are subtle and loud at once. He stops music with lyrics during strikes because the words borrow his attention. He adjusts his chair so beginning requires leaning forward, a bodily cue that wipes ambiguity from the first second. He starts leaving his phone in the hallway and keeps a paper timer on his desk. The ritual belongs to the real world. He deletes apps from the dock that used to sit there like candy in a bowl. He builds friction where he used to build convenience. He notices something almost embarrassing. Progress tastes good. A delivered paragraph produces a tiny surge of dopamine that is cleaner than the one he got from checking comments. It is quieter and more stable, the difference between refined sugar and slow bread. He experiments with switchbacks for resistance, like a hiker zigzagging a steep hill. When a task feels emotionally heavy, he runs a 2-step sequence. First, a 30-second define, where he writes the 1 sentence that would make the next 5 minutes obvious. Then the standard protocol. If his chest tightens with social fear, send the difficult email, ask for clarity, say no. He overlays a compassion frame. 3 breaths, the sentence, "This is difficult, and it's okay that it's difficult," and then the strike. He does not demand comfort. He grants permission to be uncomfortable while he moves. Anxiety remains, but it loses veto power. He begins counting his days not by hours worked, but by clean strikes. It sounds ceremonial and becomes practical. 4 clean strikes is a decent day, 6 is a strong one, 8 is rare and leaves him strangely untired. He notices that he sleeps better after days with more subtraction than drama. His browser history shrinks. His drafts folder grows. People start coming to him for answers because the things he finishes do not evaporate, they compound. Others notice the surface first. He has less flinch in meetings. When someone brings a new crisis, he asks, "What is the one outcome we need in the next hour?" and writes it in the shared doc so the room can see the blade. He suggests cutting agenda items with a smile and a shrug. Not useful for this strike. The energy changes. Meetings end earlier, sometimes without the usual ritual of revisiting every tangent. He does not dominate rooms, he edits them. The identity shift is quiet. He stops saying, "I'm trying to be disciplined," and starts saying nothing. He simply performs what he decided yesterday. He used to feel fragile, like one bad sleep could dismantle his best intentions. Now he feels like a person who can start anywhere because starting is small. People call him consistent. He thinks of it as honest. The work he does is the work he planned. The public version of him begins to match the private ledger. The rule moves out of the office. He eats without a second screen because sensation deserves stage time. He listens to a friend with his phone face down because attention is the gift and split attention is half a promise. He cleans for 5 minutes and discovers that most messes are decisions postponed. He reads a physical book at night because infinite choice at 11 p.m. is not useful for sleep. He doesn't become austere, he becomes exacting about what counts. He also becomes kinder. Judgment used to be his favorite armor. Now, whenever he sees someone lost in their phone, he recognizes his old refuge and feels compassion. The rule is not a sword for other people. It's a vow he takes for himself. He learns to apply it without cruelty. Not useful stops being an insult and becomes a direction of travel. He still stumbles. Of course he does. There are days when he wakes up already off the path, where the first tab becomes 10, where the first urge becomes an hour. He used to turn those days into narratives. I'm broken. I lost it. I need a new system. He doesn't do that now. He sets a timer for 5 minutes at 2:47 p.m. on a random Wednesday and names a strike so small it almost feels fake. Rename the file, send the first sentence, draft the subheading. He finishes it and writes 1 in the ledger. The day turns. It's not dramatic, it's stubborn. The new identity isn't a mood you earn, it's a pattern you repeat. If a stranger asked him how to do it, he would hand them a little card he keeps in his wallet. The exact 5-minute protocol, inflated into something you can live inside, annotated like a field manual, brutal in its simplicity. Preparation before the timer exists. Choose a single North Star mission for the next block of work. Today, this week, this sprint. Stop hunting for perfect words. Write "move X forward." Then break it into strikes that would be undeniable progress if done. 2 kinds help. Build, produce a new artifact. Clarify, remove ambiguity that blocks building. Decide, make a choice that unblocks others. Ship, package, and send. Rewrite strikes until each contains 1 verb and 1 object. If you can replace the verb with "and," it's too big. The stance. Sit with both feet on the floor, shoulders heavy, jaw unclenched. Place the screen at a distance that invites a wide, soft gaze, not laser focus that tunnels you into every flicker, but a mountain view that makes small sparks less fascinating. Breathe 6 slow cycles. You're not becoming calm, you're reducing noise. Set a cheap timer that does 1 job and doesn't seduce you with other possibilities. Naming. Write the strike on paper. In 5 minutes, I will gawk. Read it out loud in a tone that would not embarrass a warrior. Pretend this is the oath of a tiny monastery where vows last exactly 5 minutes, and then you get to be human again. If the strike feels sticky, perform a 30-second pre-strike. Write the first ugly sentence you will type, the first bullet you will add, the exact file you will open. Momentum prefers doors without knobs. Cutting. Close every tab not needed, not minimized, closed. Silence notifications. Move the phone to another room, face down, on airplane mode if you dare. Clear the desk until only the tool and the target remain. Open a capture page titled After and promise every stray thought a safe landing there. When a thought knocks, message them. Price check that. Research more. This reminds me of write it down, draw one arrow to the right and write after. Say not useful quietly, as if telling a friend you love them but can't talk right now. Executing. Press start. For 3 minutes you are the person you promised. Move the blade forward. Do not reread the last paragraph unless the next sentence needs it. Do not fix yesterday's grammar. You're not making sculptures yet, you're pouring wet clay. Do not open any tool not essential to the strike. If your chest tightens, breathe once and continue. If the urge to switch tabs becomes comical, narrate it. An urge is present, then continue. If a true emergency appears, someone at your door, a shout from the nursery, you stop. Everything else is a petition. You are the gate. Finishing. When the timer ends, stop as if a bell rang in a dojo. Stand up, even for 10 seconds, and log the strike. Write what moved, however small. This creates a breadcrumb trail your future self can follow without asking, where was I? Decide the next move in one sentence. Next, add data to the table. Or, next, write email to Maya. Either set another 5 minutes immediately or leave clean. Clean exits generate clean re-entries. Variations for messy days. If a task feels amorphous, run a micro strike called Define the Strike. 30 seconds to create a sentence that would make the next 5 easy. If the work is social, call, meeting, pair session, write the strike at the top of a shared dock so the room has one blade to aim. If you're traveling, carry a pocket notebook. Paper is faster than a distracted phone. If your environment is porous, use headphones not for music but for silence. They function as a visible boundary. Do not disturb. Strike in progress. Emergency mode. When the world pulls hard, compress your system rather than abandoning it. Set a 90-second triage timer and ask 3 questions. What outcome matters in the next hour? What is the one sentence of information someone needs from me? What is the smallest decision I can make now to unblock the expert? Deliver those, then return to your strike. Being useful is not being present, it's moving the mission. Anti-sabotage. Remove the candy. Log out of the social account. Delete icons from your dock and bookmarks from your bar. Place a sticky note on your monitor with 2 columns, pulls and cuts. Every time something pulls you, make a tally under pulls and answer with a tally under cuts. The act of marking turns unconscious, drift into a game with score. You are training inhibitory control like a muscle. Reps matter more than weight. Scripts for the living world. For co-workers, heads down to ship X by Y. If blocking, 1 sentence please. For friends, working in 5-minute sprints, we'll call it 6. For yourself, I'll check that after. If scripts protect you when your brain short-circuits, decide them in peace, deploy them in chaos. Metrics that don't lie. Count clean strikes, not hours. Put a tiny box next to each day on a calendar and write the number. Watch how the number correlates with your sense of self-respect. Beware the trap of beautiful dashboards. The only graph you need is a rising line of completed strikes. Recovery. When, not if, you fall off, do not build a story. Stories multiply pain. Start a single 5-minute strike wherever you are at 1:13 p.m. in a bus stop, on a bad day, in a worse week. The protocol doesn't punish late arrivals, it honors returns. Expansion. Once 5 minutes feels light, you can chain 2, then 3, with a 30-second walk between. But never worship length over clarity. 10 clean beats, 60 muddy. The 5-minute vow remains the atom. Everything larger is just atoms arranged in rows. Philosophy under the hood. This is not merely productivity, it's identity sculpting. Each not useful is a vote cast for a version of you who values consequence over performance, reality over appearance. The discipline you seek doesn't feel like heroism from the inside. It feels like subtraction, removing the non-essential until the path becomes obvious and your role on it becomes unarguable. People will call this austere. It won't be. You will laugh more because you will carry less. You will do fewer things, and those things will begin to speak for you. When you say not useful, you will not be condemning possibilities. You will be choosing one life at a time, 5 minutes at a time, until the choosing becomes you. If this shifted something in you, even a little, thank you for giving these minutes your full attention. You don't need a bigger reservoir of willpower. You need fewer exits. 5 clean minutes. 1 honest strike. Then another. If you're ready to make this real, subscribe now and step into the next session with us. In the comments, write 2 things: your first strike for today and the 1 distraction you'll cut for the next 24 hours. Say it publicly so your future self has something to live up to. Remember, when you remove what's useless, what matters steps forward to meet you. Control 5 minutes and they'll begin to control the day. Control the day, and the person you've been trying to become will stop being a goal and start being your default. I'm proud of you for choosing the blade over the noise. I'll see you in the next video. Timer ready.